Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our third episode of Fun with Flag Tags. This will be our third episode, and in this episode, me and Janeth will be having a conversation with Dr. Mulligan. Starting off, so for prospective students looking for honors opportunities or volunteer opportunities or even graduate opportunities, could you give us a quick overview of your recent research or what kind of research you're interested in?
Okay, so recent research, I haven't had an active research lab for a number of years, and I'm getting close to retirement, so I'm not a good prospect for any of those purposes from students. I have collaborated with Dr. Andrew Lang in biology, helping to fund some research there on small RNAs in the regulation of gene expression in Rhodobacter capsulatus. So that's a purple bacterium that's photosynthetic, does lots of things. That's his main organism of interest. It produces sort of bacteriophage, which are bacterial virus-like particles. They're sort of defective in a way, but he's interested in the molecular biology and the gene expression behind those are produced. And so I've sort of been collaborating on the side a little bit with that.
So what courses do you teach within the department? So I'm in your 3207 class right now.
Okay. Because I didn't recognize Janet's name from the class list, and I have to mentally check yours, Janet. So yes, I do three things essentially. One is in the fall teach biochemistry 3207. Which, as you know, is heavy nucleic acid molecular biology, more than you ever thought you wanted to know about molecular biology type of course. In the winter, I'll be teaching a course on the interactions, molecular interactions, the human-bacteria interface, which is a course I've started. This will be the third time I've taught it. And essentially, it's meant to look at the molecular biology of how bacteria interact with human tissue. At the present, it then mostly goes on to look at some diseases. So I tend to look into the nasty things, the diseases that bacteria can cause, because they can produce toxins, the structure in toxins. There are genes that express them, and that's the kind of stuff that makes me happy to teach about. So that's why I go there. And then the third thing I've been doing for a few years is just sort of act as general coordinator for the honors course.
Perfect.
So can you tell us about the new honors option that was put in this year and how it would work winter and moving forward?
So this year, given the fact that no one was allowed on campus, we put in three new options in addition to the traditional lab option. One of these is a systematic review. Another is a computational project, and the third one is writing a grant proposal. So I'll go over each of these. So the basic idea is we picked these three because they could lead to more or less the same outcome as the traditional lab research. So the traditional lab research, you have to write a thesis with an introduction, methods, results, and then you have to give a presentation and answer questions on it. So in picking these other three options, students have to, for systematic review, students can still write an introduction to the topic they're going to review. They can describe the methodology behind the review and then write up a report on the results of what they find. For computational projects, these are things where people can look up databases or use computational resources, for example, to model molecules or things like that. So again, you can still write up an introduction to why you're doing what you're doing, the kind of software or programs that you might want to use, and then what results you get, and then you can give a presentation on that. And then the grant research, and that's where you can pick a topic of something that, although you can't actually do any work on it right now, you could say, well, let's see what I think I could do if I was starting out, for example, on a master's program. And so you could write up the introduction and then say, okay, here's the methodology I think I would use. And here are the kind of experiments I want to do, what I think I might get out of the experiments. So we pick those because we could see the parallels between all 4 different types. So there are other possibilities, but we haven't looked into any of those in details yet. Okay. You asked about winter. We tend not to encourage winter registrations too much. I like to keep things in sync, so that if everybody's doing a fall winter schedule, that's much easier to manage. We do have people do things in off semesters though, so it's not unheard of. This coming year, the other, in addition to the pandemic issue, the other issue we have to think about is the new building. And when we're going to move into it and when labs will be available and so forth. So it's a little hard to predict what's going to happen in winter and what's going to happen in spring at this stage. We're going to wait and see, but in the meantime, we have 4 options that are still available.
So you do a lot of stuff with like coordinating like honors and like speaking to students about stuff like that. What would you say to a student who's trying to decide between doing like more of the pure biochem stream versus the nutrition stream, or even a student that's trying to decide between honors or no honors?
My fundamental answer, let me put it this way, is you should always do what interests you.
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to make sort of strategic decisions that, well, if I do this, then maybe I'll have a better chance of getting into that program. I don't buy those sorts of things at all. You know, if you think you might like to take a course in, let's say, geography or anthropology, go for it. You know, or folklore. I think that shows students who are more aware and interested, and there's more to them than just people who want to tick off biochemistry courses, for example. For honors or not honors, it sort of depends, again, what your plans might be. Some programs require honors to get into it. Many graduate programs are sort of more specifically look for honors students than not, but not all of them. And it's not the case that professional schools require honors programs either, for that matter. You know, if you want to go on and do, you know, dietetics or studies in human nutrition, you should do the nutrition program. If you want to go on and do, you know, hardcore biochemistry, you should do the biochemistry program. But if you want to sort of go and work for the government of Canada, you know, doing for the Food Inspection Agency or environmental inspections, I don't think either one there's a difference, because both will give you the training that you need to qualify you well. If you want to work for the government of Canada, learn French. That's the strong advice I would give. Yeah.
I didn't mention graduate school, but what would you say to students thinking, so like I'm a 5th-year student, actually. I did an honors degree in neuroscience, and I'm staying back this year to finish off. I had 5 courses, and then I have a joint between biochem and neuro, and I'm actually looking into biochemistry master's programs.
Yeah.
So what would you say to students about looking, so even with the pandemic now, about like looking for research opportunities or, you know, like future opportunities as a master's student next year?
Okay. So in looking for any kind of opportunity, again, you should look to do something that you're interested in. Okay. Whether it's a MUSET position, whether it's an honors position, whether it's going to graduate school, you should try and pick a supervisor, someone you want to work with who's doing working in a topic or an area that you find interesting, fascinating, that you will want to sort of that will get the intellectual juices flowing, that you will become absorbed in. What you should not do is go and work for something that you find boring and dull. Both you and your supervisor will feel miserable, and it's not worth it for anybody. So always pick, look for somebody who's doing something interesting. And you know, for any undergraduates going through, I would have to say, you know, where we're not seeing people, you know, live in classrooms anymore. But if somebody's teaching something, you say, that really sounds interesting, follow up on that and maybe make a connection, and that might lead to either a MUSET position or an honors position down the road somewhere.
Perfect. Another question, one last serious one. This is not really pertaining to like MUN itself, but about like the pandemic. So I think it was 2 days ago, they released information on the Pfizer vaccine that is showing like a 90% efficacy rate. And there's a lot of people on mainly US news channels saying that they're going to be giving it out by the end of the year, by January, which seems pretty fast. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Basically, no, I haven't. Ever since the announcement came out, I've been meaning to. I should really look up to see what this vaccine is, because I know there's a whole bunch of ways companies were approaching making a vaccine, but I just sort of let them float in one ear and out the other. But clearly a 90% success rate sounds good. Still 10% not working, so that's great. That would give us a real advantage of doing things. There will be side effects for some people in taking the vaccine. So I think it's great that it's coming, but the other critical thing about that is this vaccine requires really serious storage conditions. It's like -70 freezers and stuff. So that's going to pose a challenge for the public health authorities to distribute it. You can't really, put a -70 in the back of your truck and go around with it. So that will be an interesting challenge for people. And maybe we'll start getting other vaccines out there, but the Pfizer one, and there's another one coming along that's the same methodology, I think, maybe about a week behind it. That might allow us to get back to something like traditional normal. I think so. The vaccine requires, is it 2 shots 3 weeks apart? So once you have a program, I'd say it's going to take about 6 weeks after the program starts. And that depends upon how many doses you can start to distribute at the beginning. So if they're highly limited, and going into care homes and hospitals, that's not going to affect the general population all that much.
I don't know much about this, but I've also heard that there might be a second strain of the virus that is more contagious and more dangerous. And have you come across anything like that?
Well, there have been 2 strains going around from the get-go. So there was the original Wuhan strain identified in China, but when at some point in Europe a second strain emerged, and that's the strain that's come to North America for the most part, except maybe in the West Coast. Now, in the past week or so, I've seen headlines of a strain being found in minks in Denmark. But when you come to, the strain definition is a hard thing, because all of these are going to mutate just the way flu does. It's probably finding one particular thing where one particular mutation has resulted in a completely different phenotype. One you can see this is causing more trouble than the one we had before, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we have a couple fun questions now, just for people to get to know you a little bit better.
Here.
So the first one I have here is, if you could be any amino acid or bacteria, whatever you want to choose, what would you be? Do you have a favorite one?
I'm very bad at spontaneous questions like that. After all the time I spoke nonsense about amino acids in class and stuff.
I can answer. I think glutamate is my favorite amino acid, just because it's the only one that I could easily remember, being in neuroscience.
Okay. I'll throw out tryptophan for no good reason other than that its symbol is hard to associate with the name of the amino acid. How does that?
That is, yes.
So we've all been under quarantine or isolation for some time. I know Newfoundland's pretty good, so we can get out and about. But during the height, or even now, did you pick up any new hobbies during quarantine?
Haven't had time, really. No, I haven't picked up any new hobbies during quarantine. I tried it. I tried at the beginning to go out for a walk every day, but that's gone by the wayside.
Getting too cold now.
Yeah, yeah. Once we got into classes in September, you know, the day is just get up, sit at the computer, record a video, get slides ready, record another video. It's like there's no time, and you know, you can't even surf and have fun because you're doing for work all the time. So.
So if you could talk to any scientist or biochemist or anyone from the past, who would you decide to talk to and what would you ask them?
Oh boy. Oh dear.
Or is there some like past research that you wish you had participated in?
Oh, there's loads. I mean, yeah, there's probably. You always find researchers saying, "I wish I'd thought of that." The one that's popped into my head all of a sudden are the Huxleys. So there's Thomas Aldous and Selma Barkham, I think it was, who were brothers and sisters, or one of them might have been a cousin. So they were a family of English scientists. Selma Barkham did work up in Labrador or in the Northern Peninsula. So she was, I think, an ethnologist. Others did. Huxley's worked on muscle proteins and muscle fibers and describing that. And so they were very distinguished. So, I mean, I think it would be interesting to meet a family of people like that, you know, who might be good to speak with. I was reading up over the weekend about Elsie Whittleton, who is a nutritional scientist, who I wasn't aware of. I'd heard the name before, but who did you know, looking at her biography, she did work on defining diets, the composition of foods. She worked out nutrient rationing during the Second World War because she lived during that time. She helped look at body composition of tissues in neonates and animals as well, and did work on seals and guinea pigs and all sorts of things. But I think she would be a fascinating person to talk to, based upon what I've read, because she just was interested in so many different things.
That's interesting, yes.
Okay, I have one more that I've just thought of that could be fun.
Okay.
So I know a lot of students, especially being at home, even when we're not at home, it's very easy when we're studying for tests to get lost in Netflix or anything like that. Is there anything like you go to for bingings or any shows that you're super interested in right now?
Okay. Yeah, there is one that I would recommend to any biochemical student, any biochemist, any nutritionist, any neuroscientist, particularly those who are interested in the health professions, and that's called The Midwife. It's a wonderful TV show. It's set in the East End of London in the late 50s, early 60s. It was written by a person who started out as a midwife, and that back then in that era, midwives practiced separately from doctors. What's fascinating about the show is in part the era it's set in, because I'm old enough to sort of remember part of it. You know, antibiotics were just being made available. The recent episode there talked about finding a case of diphtheria or a case of anthrax, things that we don't think of anymore, but back then were still a regular part of what doctors had to do. It showcases some of the not problems of societies, but the real issues, because it was set in the East End of London, a very working class area of London. So I really like for the combination of things that it brings out, and for any of your generation heading into or wanting to go to you know, a health professional field, I think it's a sort of it could serve as a reminder of, okay, we've come a long way since. Let's hope we don't go back there, in terms of having to deal with those kind of, you know, medical issues, and so on. So I really like the perspective it brings.
Perfect.
I mean, the other TV show I don't, not specific, anything Scandinavian police dramas I like too. So there you go.
Well, thank you so much for
Okay.
agreeing to do this.
All right.
Thank you
Well
for
done.
being with us.
Well done. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay. Take care now.
Bye.
I have to get a quiz ready for you, Jenna, now this afternoon.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. This was our little chat with Dr. Mulligan. I hope you enjoyed it and keep an eye out for our next episode. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.